All right, it's the Houston High School Huddle. We're about ready to dive into Week 8. We got to get our guy back into the States. That's my man, Matt Stepp. He ain't here yet, but he'll be here come Thursday and Friday. Stepp, before we even start, and talk to me about how your Thanksgiving was. And before we confuse people, Canadian Thanksgiving.
Correct, Canadian Thanksgiving. Yeah, it was great. We had dinner. So today is Monday. We had dinner yesterday. My mother-in-law works in the healthcare field, and so she has to work today. So we had dinner yesterday. Now we're just we're going to enjoy some leftovers and we'll watch some Blue Jays baseball this afternoon because they're in the ALCS. So we'll watch some Blue Jays baseball and then watch a little Monday Night Football tonight. So it'll be a good sports day.
I can dig it. All right. Well, you left after the action. So let's talk about some of the. Before we get into Week 8, we got to talk about what's going on in the action. We got a team that we didn't think was a state title contender until they started going through some squads. Now you got to put them in the mix here in 6A Division 2.
Yeah.
Right?
I think in 6A Division 2, Region 3, I think CE King is a absolute contender in Region 3. You beat Atascocita and Summer Creek 2 out of the last 3 weeks, and yeah, they for one half last week I thought CE King might run the table and just cruise to a state championship. They were up 42-0 on Summer Creek at halftime, and I'm like, what in the world is going on? They came down to earth a little bit in Summer Creek. Credit to them, for not just mailing it in, and they made it a game there. It was 42-28, and they had the ball in CE King territory late. Now they were going to need to score quickly because there was about a little less than 2 minutes left, so they were going to need to score quickly and then get an onside kick, digging themselves that big of a hole. But I think you got to give Summer Creek a little credit. I think if you're a Summer Creek fan, you're saying, we're not going to be down 42-0 in the first half again like that against CE King. If we play them again, it'll be more like the second half versus the first half. And I think if you're a CE King fan, you're like, oh, we let off the gas in the second half, we'll be fine. We're the better football team. But the bottom line here is CE King has taken a huge step towards possibly getting that number 1 seed in a Division 2 out of 23 6A, and I think they are absolutely a contender here in the region. State contender, I don't know yet. We'll talk about that. I'm sure at some point. Obviously, I think in 6A statewide, the word of the day is parity, right? I think this year is a more balanced year than we've seen in quite some time. But if there is a clear-cut number 1 team, I think that team resides in Division 2 in South Lake Carroll. So I think you look at it and you realize that, state contender might be a little much because you have the prohibitive favorite there in Division 2, but I think absolutely that there's a path CE Kings in Arlington in December.
Yeah, you got to put – if you have a handful of teams that you're talking about, all of a sudden CE Kings in a handful. And it's kind of weird because I talked to Deion Sims in the summertime, and my main questions were, how are you going to get that playoff spot back from Kingwood? Now I feel stupid asking that question.
Yeah, I'm not even worried about that. Yeah,
they already got that. I ain't even worried about that squad.
They're thinking much bigger there on the east side, and I can't wait for Halloween night. The east side of Houston is going to be alive. North Shore CE King, that East Houston battle. Those two communities are close. The kids all know each other. They probably play youth football together. They've grown up together. There's kind of some back and forth between the two communities, and then you've got a lot of ties between the coaching staffs now. So that's going to be a fun night on Halloween night. I don't know if that game's at North Shore or at CE King, but wherever that game is going to be, I expect a packed house.
It'll be a fun one for sure. And then on the flip side, like you were talking about with Summer Creek, I listened to Coach Harrison all year long talk about, man, I just need teams to make us tougher for the playoffs. And he felt he got that from Shadow Creek. They had that little battle there, a little tussle, and they ended up getting a win. They definitely got it here. It's only going to help them in the long run because they're not going anywhere. They're still a playoff squad. And granted, they dropped to 5 in our coaches poll. They fell from their top spot all the way down to 5, but they're not going anywhere. They're still going to be there.
Yeah, I think offensively, I think Summer Creek, Benny Easter, unbelievable the last couple of weeks, what he's done. Noah Spinks has really emerged. I think when you look at it for Summer Creek, the concerns are on the defensive side of the ball. This is not a lockdown defense like they've had the last couple of years. And I think that's where the biggest question marks are going to be come playoff time is can they improve enough on the defensive side of the ball? I mean, defense is one of those things where either you got the dudes or you don't. It's not like offense where things can kind of come together and you can, kind of figure things out on the fly. Defense, it's either you got it or you don't. And I don't know if Summer Creek has it on defense. Right. It's TBD at best. It's TBD at this point.
And there's a lot of teams, not only in this district but in the state, that have that same worry. Haven't showed us a lot defensively, and yet they're still high in the rankings, and even in their own district. You talk about Atascocita, they're in that same spot. Sure. Going back down to 4A, how about that big win for Belleville? They got it kind of set. They kind of got themselves together now and got a big win over there at Sealy in the big rivalry game.
Yeah, Belleville, the Brahmas got the offense going a little bit. They had really been kind of stuck in the mud the past month or so on the offensive side of the ball, and they opened up district play. Huge win over their arch rival, Sealy, 35-20. I think for Grady Rose Ball Club, this gives them a lot of confidence going into the rest of their district schedule. It's probably going to, barring an upset or two, they're going to be the number 1 seed in the playoffs, which is weird to say. But we're October 13th here. We're already talking about they've locked up the number 1 seed. But they're Belleville, because they beat Sealy, it's probably going to take 2 upsets for them to get knocked out of that number 1 seed. So I think Belleville's defense continues to be elite. I mean, holding Sealy to 20 points is something. That offense for Coach Finley was cooking all year. So to hold them to 20, I think, is the most impressive thing. But the most encouraging thing, I think, for Belleville is they found some things on the offensive side of the ball, and there's a lot to build on as they move into the final part of the season and prep for a potential playoff run, which, I think Region 3, I think Waco La Vega is still the favorite, but I don't think that gap – I think that gap is closed. I think La Vega is not quite at the level they were a year ago. So I think if you're a Belleville fan, you're hoping they can continue to improve, and maybe by the time they potentially meet up with La Vega, be it around 3, round 4, they can take them to the mat.
And every time, I'm watching way too much college football these days, because every time you say something like "close the gap," I'm immediately thinking of that Aflac duck commercial where he said, "I help you close the gap with Dion and Nick Saban."
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll take a check, but I don't want to get hurt. But I mean, they want to help close the gap. Just out of the goodness of their hearts, I'll take it. Right?
That'd be pretty nice. Pretty nice.
Yeah.
How about our boys over there at Memorial? They shot into the top 20. They went from not existent to number 14 with their big Saturday win over Cy Fair, which puts them in the driver's seat for 17-6A.
Yeah, I think this puts them they were, the Cy Fair win from a playoff seeding standpoint probably is not going to really factor into things, because Cy Fair is probably going to go Division I. Memorial's probably going to go Division II, and they're probably, at least I just worked on my 6A projections last night, and I feel like Memorial's locked into that 1 seed at the moment. Cy Fair's locked into the 1 seed in Division I. But I think for Houston Memorial, this is another proof of concept win for Brooks Hack, first year head coach. We're starting to talk about Houston Memorial or Spring Branch Memorial statewide. So just to pull the curtain back, right? We call them Houston Memorial when it comes to statewide, because Smithson Valley is in Spring Branch, Texas. Right. So in the San Antonio area. So to avoid confusion, as a statewide outlet, we call them Houston Memorial. Locally, I think a lot of people just call them Memorial locally. Right. So, whatever you want to call them 5-1.
Call them winners.
First place. Call them winners. They have proof of concept. You have wins now for Cy Fair and Cy Ranch.
Right.
2
and
excellent,
a close loss
wins.
to I forgot who they played. Was it Pearland? No. They lost somebody close.
Dawson. It was a Dawson.
No, it's Pearland. They lost by 11 points. That's the closest game Pearland had.
Which, considering how good Pearland is, we're talking about a top 10 Pearland team here. So that's the Mustangs have put together a pretty strong resume. And I think right now you look at it, and they're really through the meat of the schedule with wins over Cy Falls and Cy Fair already. I mean, Cy Falls is a good team too. They have a win over Cy Falls. Yeah. This is a strong resume. Week 11, their game.
They got their Stratford game coming.
That's a huge rivalry game. Tully Stadium will be buzzing when they get together that night. And that game is actually really the one from a playoff seeding standpoint. It's going to be the 1-2, and because you feel like Stratford also is going to get in, so they'll be the Division II other team. So that game is going to be really impactful potentially for seeding, possibly. Now, if Stratford has 2 losses, it's not going to mean anything because Memorial's because they could lose 100-0 to Stratford and they'll still be the 1 seed. Exactly. So we'll know Stratford plays Cy Falls in a couple of weeks on a Saturday. I'll be at that game. That'll probably be that'll tell us going forward whether or not Stratford or Memorial will be anything. But I think for Memorial, you got to be super fired up about this. The energy and the life that Coach Hack has really infused into this program is something. And I think you got to be really excited, potentially going into the playoffs at 9-1 with a top seed, getting a home playoff game. I think this is a team that could play Thanksgiving weekend.
Interesting. That's interesting what you say about Coach because, they had so many years with Coach Koch, and, the guy had a storied, legendary career.
Oh, he's a legend. Yeah, it's nothing. Sometimes
nothing
just a little life, a little something new, and just a little energy can just do wonders. And I think that's kind of what happens. I mean, it's not like Memorial's got an influx of transfers coming in or something like that. It's the same kids. I think it's just a little energy and a little life, and maybe just a couple of tweaks on some things, and it's worked wonders.
How about Cy Ranch, man? They came from behind to take down Waller in a big. They were down 14 points there. They came back and pulled that one off.
Yeah,
they're really doing well in 16-6A after a non-eventful non-district.
Yeah, they kind of started off slow. Now looking back on it, that loss to Memorial probably doesn't look near as bad as it did early in the year. They dropped the season opener to Tompkins, and that's the one. Special teams kind of killed them in that game. Tompkins kind of hurt them in the special teams game. But yeah, this was I watched some highlights of that game this morning, and this looked like an absolute barn burner. Waller goes up 2 scores early. Ranch battles back. Then Waller, TK Gaines scores with a minute 50, I think, left, maybe even like minute 30 left in the game to put Waller up 33-28. And Braden Baker just leads Ranch right back down the field. This is last year, Baker came in as a backup quarterback when Ranch played Woods on a Saturday and led them on a 2-minute drill touchdown drive to win the game. He's super comfortable in the scramble offense, 2-minute drill type setting. Braden Baker is a ball playing jack. He's got weapons. I think both teams walk away. Waller obviously disappointed. They dropped that game. Thought it was weird they were wearing white at home. They must have had an agreement there because Waller was rocking the white jerseys at home. At first, I was like, why is this game in Cy-Fair? But I saw Waller ISD at midfield, and I was like, well, it's clearly in Waller, and Waller's wearing white. So I have to ask Coach Mendoza about that. But I think if you're Cy Ranch, you got to feel great. I think you've already got a win in your back pocket over Springs and Waller now. I think you get ready for that Bridgeland game. And if you can win that Bridgeland game, I think you can pretty much sew up the district championship at this point. Coach Will Blaylock's squad, I think Cy Ranch is getting better as the year goes along, and that's what you want to see coming into the playoffs where they'll be the Division I bracket most likely. And I think they can make some noise over there. So, and I think you're a Waller. We talked about Waller kind of as a sleeper team in the preseason, all the offensive guys back. And, man, TK Gaines is having an unreal sophomore year. He is the real deal. And when you've got him as your quarterback, you can be in just about any game.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're talking more about Baker in that game. He's got the poise, which for a quarterback that's just being put in there for this year, there's a play in that game where the play just went all to hell. It broke down. The ball was on the ground. Mm-hmm. The whole play was busted, and he took off for 50 yards. Nothing fazed him, and he was going for a touchdown. So that's good to have with a quarterback in there.
Oh, 100%. I'm sure Coach Blaylock is very happy he's got a guy like Baker at quarterback who's just nothing seems to bother him.
All right, this is the kind of conversation we have every year. Where do we – and we're in week 8, so we only got 4 weeks, so we got to start the conversation now. Where do we think he falls? I mean, you talked about doing your projections. Where do you feel Katie's falling right now? If it was today?
I tweeted it last night. My projection, I think Katie's going to go Division II. I think what you're going to see in is, at least if form holds for me, I've got Katie running the table going 8-0 in district. I've got Cinco going 7-1. They've already beat Jordan, and I've got Cinco running the table against they've lost to Katy. They lost to Katy, beat Jordan. They still that huge game against Tompkins coming up this week, I believe.
Right.
And, I believe they've already they got Maid Creek. They've already beaten Pato, I believe. So they beat Tompkins and they beat Maid Creek. They're going to be probably 7-1. I got Jordan going 6-2 with losses to Cinco and Katy. This is where things get interesting because you've got Pato, Tompkins, and Maid Creek, all very evenly matched on paper, and all have split against each other. Those games are already in the bag.
Yeah.
So if form holds, if none of those three teams can beat somebody ahead of them or lose to somebody behind them, then all three are probably going to finish 5-3, which would mean a three-way tie for fourth.
Right.
Based on the tiebreaker, Pato has the edge because they have a 11-point win over Tompkins. And that 11-point win and a 2-point loss to Maid Creek puts them at +9, which puts them ahead of Tompkins and Maid Creek. And therefore, Pato gets the 4th spot. The only scenario Katy goes D2 is if Pato and Cinco get in, which they do, which sends Katy Division 2. So today, October 13th, I'm projecting Katy to go Division 2. Now, still a lot to be decided, but if form holds, I think Katy goes D2. And I think that's big. I think it really strengthens the Division 2 bracket in Region 3. The Division 1 bracket's strong enough. I mean, it's going to be deep and strong no matter what. But I think now you throw Katy into that D2 bracket along with CE King, Summer Creek, Shadow Creek, Memorial. Gets a lot more interesting and a lot more eyes will be on that bracket for sure.
It does get a lot more interesting. It actually brings one of our games up when we talk in 19-6A because I think Tompkins is going to upset Cinco Ranch, and we'll talk about it later. When we get into it, if that happens, then that throws that 3-game tiebreaker out the window, and then we're back up there. But you're going to tell me why they're not going to do it when we get down to 19-6A, because first we got to start with our game of the week, which is College Park against the Woodlands, huge rivalry game, and now College Park is sitting here like, okay, time for us to get this district title. One more obstacle. Can we beat Jack Dalton and the boys?
Yeah, it's a huge. This is a big rivalry game. Get your tickets now. Woodforest Bank Stadium is going to be sold out. I can promise you for this one. Great quarterback matchup. Jack Dalton, Camden Hughes over at College Park. I think College Park has been a revelation this year. And I think it's because of the defense. Marco Beltran at safety is kind of the leader of that group, but that defensive line has been almost unblockable all year. They have just been causing havoc for teams, consistently putting their offense in good position. And then the offense on the flip side has executed at a really high level. They've got a great scheme, great system, and they got playmakers. They've got a really good running back. They've got multiple playmakers at receiver. The Cromartie kid transferring in from California this offseason just gave them a huge weapon on the outside. This is a really balanced and complete football team at College Park. They have been impressive all year. The Woodlands, I think, was they have the pedigree, they have the name recognition. The loss to Willis earlier in the year kind of threw them off a little bit. They've kind of got their wheels back on. This is the first big test since the Willis game. Mm-hmm. I got to go with College Park here. They've just been the more consistently good team this year. So I think it's going to be really close. It's a rivalry game. And College Park doesn't beat the Woodlands very often. No. I think it's maybe only happened once since they opened. So I'm going to go College Park here. I think Kyle Coates has got something different going on there at College Park. Give me the Cavaliers.
And they got – and with 2 winless teams and a bye to finish out the schedule, not that they weren't going to go all out anyway. If you have some sort of nagging injury, whatever, you got 3 weeks to get that thing together. Everybody goes all in. And
they're
trying.
Yeah, if you can walk, you're playing this week. This is one of those games that I think this is not one where you're like, hey, if you're a little banged up, we're going to sit you out, get you ready for the playoffs. No, you can go. This is a playoff type football game. Not from a seeding standpoint though, it's probably not. Again, if that's the difference in 6A from the other classifications, is that the Woodlands is probably going Division 1.
Right.
College Park's probably going Division 2 because it looks like Grand Oaks is going to get that 4th playoff spot based on their win over Conroe last week. So both these teams are kind of locked into their playoff seed, but in their community, and I can guarantee you Kyle Coates wants that undisputed district championship. That would be absolutely huge for College Park. It's all hands on deck type game.
All right, let's move to 14-6A. Aldine Nimitz just could not get it done. They came back and tied Westfield, but they couldn't get the victory. Westfield pulled away. So now I'm going to steal a quote from you. Let's not make one loss turn into two losses because they're playing an undefeated district team in Davis. They can't keep thinking about Westfield. They got to concentrate here and get this win.
Yeah, and I credit to Westfield. They heard the talk about saying the run was over, and they credit to them. All you can do is tip your cap and salute them for that. Yep. They got the win, big win for them over Nimitz, their best win of the year. Nimitz is a good football team, but I think Davis is a good football team. Kelvin Chatham's done a great job there rebuilding that Davis program from when he took. He did. People forget Kelvin Chatham took Booker T. Washington to 10-0 in the regular season. Like he had them, he did a fantastic job with Booker T. He's come to Davis. It took a couple of years. I think you're starting to see now the fruits of that this 4-2 start. And impressive win last week over Decaney, 50-27. And Decaney's down this year 100%. But for an Aldine team, Spring ISD has had Aldine's ISD's number for the most part in these past 6 to 8 years that the spring Aldine alignment has taken place. So anytime an Aldine ISD team puts it to a spring ISD team, it's big for Aldine. And Davis put it to Decaney. So they're going to come in with a lot of momentum. I think Nimitz, this is going to be a barn burner. I mean, Thorne is going to be a great place to be when these two match up. I believe this is a Friday night game. Yeah, it's a Friday night game. It's going to be a great matchup. I just think Cornelius Harmon's ball club's a little complete, a little more senior heavy. I lean to Nimitz here, but I think this is a one-score football game, and I think this is potentially could be also for seeding if memory serves. I believe both these two, if they're in the playoffs, are going to be in the Division I side of things. So I'm just double checking my math. Yes, so this is a big game because the winner probably is going to get Grand Oaks in the first round.
Exactly.
The loser is probably going to get the Woodlands.
Right.
So, no offense to Shaw McDowell and Grand Oaks, but I'd rather play Grand Oaks than the Woodlands right now.
Yeah,
so
that is true.
And you get to host, and you get to host. So big game here.
Oh, and then, of course, I can't leave 14-6A without the spring update. Still no points, but they're working hard for it. They're going to get a point at some point. The Spring Lions. It just hasn't happened after 6 games. They at least held the other team to 6 points, so that's good.
Yeah, I think you got to hope you can. Yeah, I mean I had to double check that score last over the weekend because I saw it was 6-0, and I was like, did a lightning storm hit? Did they not finish the game? Did something happen? I was a little concerned that we had the wrong score, but actually no, it was 6-0 Ike over Spring. So nice win for Ike to keep alive in the playoffs. But we've got Spring obviously very difficult season. They haven't scored yet. There's 3 UIL teams who have not scored a point yet this year.
Who are the other two?
Katy Harmony there in 4A Division 2. The funny thing is Katy Harmony does have a win. They have a forfeit win.
Oh, wow.
But they haven't scored. Okay. They haven't scored this year. And then Valley View up north of DFW, right, just right on I-35, just south of Gainesville. They have not scored either. Not yet. So hopefully those teams can find some magic at some point.
At some point, one of Spring's opponents is going to snap one over the punter's head, and they'll get 2 that way at least.
I'm guessing the Aldine game. I think Spring's got a chance to
they got to get some points there. Yeah. All right, the big game in 15-6A is undefeated Magnolia against Klein Collins. It's time to find out about Magnolia because they're starting that stretch where they're going to play some teams here down the stretch here as they got Tomball and Klein, the 4 teams we kind of feel that are postseason bound. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you think in this one as they got to go on the road on a Thursday.
Yeah, big game. This is one of the better Thursday night games in the state. This might be the game that I'm keeping an eye on. Klein Collins bounces back from that really surprising loss to Oak. They put it to Tomball Memorial 48-13. The Braden Shogden kid at quarterback just love watching him play. He's fantastic. He plays. I've said it before in this podcast. He is a Klein Collins quarterback through and through. Yeah. If a quarterback embodies what a program is about, it's Braden Schagen. He's the perfect guy.
He's like that system. Colby. What was it? Colby Powers.
Yeah.
He's kind of like him, right?
Yeah, Colby. He was the same thing. The Klein Collins. They got a type, y'all, and that Powers and Schagen. That's their type at quarterback. They've got a type. Some people like redheads. Some people like brunettes. Klein Collins like
winners.
They like winners who play quarterback like a linebacker. That's their type. So, Magnolia, I think it starts with their defense. They've been great all year. Other than the College Station game, which they did win, they got in a shootout and won that one. But they've it's hard to score 20 points on Magnolia. That defense has been locked down all year. So if you're a Bulldogs fan, you feel good because that defense. Defense travels, and you're going to need the defense to come through. So I expect a physical. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. It wouldn't surprise me if the winner scored less than 28 points. I look for a 24-20 kind of physical, grinded-out game. I like Collins. I just think that they're a little more athletic, a little more explosive. So I lean to Collins here, but I think this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out. And I think if you're Magnolia, you're entering this, like you said, we're going to find out this week just how real Magnolia is because these 3 of the next 4 weeks, Collins, Tomball, and Klein coming up. And that Klein game, the week 11, could really be big potentially for seeding. So we'll see how it plays out with the.
It was big last year.
Split. Oh yeah, it was.
Find out he makes the show.
Yeah, then last year Klein scores late and goes for 2 in a meaningless game for them to win. So
right,
15-6A always has some surprises up their sleeves, but it's been. Other than the last week when we had the upsets, when Collins lost to Oak and Forest, who did Forest beat? I can't remember. Forest beat somebody. There was a couple of upsets last week, if memory serves, that threw me off. So this week, I think form holds. I think right now we're still looking at Collins over Magnolia, and I think if you're looking ahead, I would go Collins 1, Tomball 2, Klein 3, Magnolia 4. But that Klein Magnolia game week 11 is going to probably determine 3-4.
Yeah, Forest beat Memorial last week, 67-61 in that.
That's what it was. That crazy wild scoring game. Yeah, it was a crazy week in 15-6A and week 6.
Well, last week I thought we had 16-6A figured out before we get to Waller Bridgeland, but then Langham Creek says, you really need to pay attention to us because they beat Cy Springs, and all of a sudden they're looking like they're kind of pointed towards the playoffs, and Cy Springs is now reeling a little bit. But we're going to talk about this Waller Bridgeland game as well. That's a 1 p.m. game on Saturday at Pridgeon. Waller might finally be done with the big boys here. I feel like they're on the list every single week here, although they do have Langham Creek and Cy Springs.
Yeah.
I guess everybody's a big boy for Waller.
Yeah, Waller's still got work to do. I mean, this district has gotten kind of turned upside. This is why comparing scores does not work.
Okay? Yeah, it doesn't work, does it?
Because Bridgeland beat Langham Creek 56-14.
Right.
And they lose to Cy Springs, and then Cy Springs by a point, and then Cy Springs loses to Langham Creek by 10. So throw it out the window. Obviously, Cy Springs very, very banged up. We'll, I'm sure, talk about them in a little while. Bridgeland, I think, they bounced back from that collapse against Springs last week. Granted, it was against Cy Park, and all due respect to Cy Park, they're struggling, right? They've lost 30-plus games in a row. Bridgeland beats them 49-0, and probably Bridgeland could have been a lot worse if they wanted. They, called off the dogs. I think if you're Bridgeland, the good thing is you didn't let the collapse against Springs hurt you. The key for Bridgeland, if Bridgeland, 2 things. I'm interested. How's Cash Schwab doing? Is he healthy? I haven't seen if he played last week against Park or not. I've been traveling, so I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the game. Don't know if he played or not against Park, but he didn't play the fourth quarter against Springs, and we saw what happened. If you're Bridgeland, you got to have Cash Schwab. He's what makes the offense go. You can't put everything on Beagle at quarterback. If you do, that's what happened is that they had a lot of turnovers because now they got one-dimensional. Springs was peeling their ears back and getting after him. So Schwab's the key here. As long as Bridgeland doesn't turn the football over, I don't think Waller can slow them down.
Right.
I do think Waller's going to score on them.
Right.
I do think Waller's going to score. TK Gaines and that offense is as explosive and dynamic as it gets. I just think if Waller's got the running game. They'll be able to get a stop or two. I look for I'm going to assume Schwab plays. So we'll go, I'll say 45-35, 49-35 Bridgeland win to kind of get back on track and put them, still in the hunt for the district championship, because Bridgeland still has to play Cy Ranch. If Bridgeland runs the table, they're still going to win the district despite the collapse. So that's the key here. And then things start to get really interesting, I think, with Waller, Springs, and Langham Creek for those last two spots, because like you said, Springs and Waller play later on this year on a Saturday, which could have major playoff implications.
And Springs is they got the walking wounded there. It's going into Cy Woods now. Cy Woods obviously struggling in district play. They haven't picked up a win, but Cy Springs needs it. They're desperate now. They got to pull one to make sure that Bridgeland win didn't mean nothing.
Yeah, I think if you're Woods has obviously struggled under the first year head coach Jeremy Hickman. It's been a struggle for them. I don't know if they've had some guys hurt that just really. I mean, that loss to Lakes last week pretty much cooked them as far as the playoffs. That they've been kind of relegated to spoiler at this point. Yeah, if you're Springs, you got to have this one. You cannot afford a loss this week if you're Springs. So, Paris Melvin's still healthy. That's the one guy they still have. They can't afford to lose him. I mean, they've just been decimated with the injuries on both sides of the ball. And OG Fagan, they're trying to hold it together with duct tape, bubble gum, chicken wire, whatever they can get over there to try to hold things together and hopefully get a couple of guys back at some point this year. But I feel like Paris Melvin's going to take over this week and they'll get themselves a win. And I also think, let's be honest, I think that was an emotional win on Saturday for Springs over Bridgeland, coming back on a short week to play Langham Creek. And Langham Creek's playing for their playoff lives as well. It just didn't work out. So I think for Springs, this is a must win. Like at this point, you really can't afford another slip up, because if you have one more slip up, now you start getting into tiebreaker hell and things like that, because you've already lost to Ranch and now you've lost to Langham Creek. So, and you still got Waller coming up on November 1st. So, and hey, Cy Lakes is not. I don't think Cy Lakes is totally out of this thing.
I got that up there next year.
So yeah, I think Springs gets the win here. Lakes and Ranch is great win for Lakes last week to kind of stay in the mix with that win over Woods. Ranch is a little bit different animal though. They're just so talented, especially in the trenches. That's where the big edge is. And I think
it's nothing but big boys left for Cy Lakes. They got to.
Yeah, this is where it gets tough. They're 2-1. And you got to figure out,
what teams are you going to upset? You got to upset.
They probably got to get. They need two. They're going to need two. I think Langham Creek is doable, and then it's like, okay, where do you find that other win? Maybe it's Springs. I think for Lakes, this is one of those deals. If you win this week, it's awesome. It's a gravy at this point. I think if you're Lakes, you're really focused on Springs and Langham. If you can get those two, you're really in. But then you're still probably dependent on tiebreakers. So Ranch, big edge in this game. I think Lakes, you're hoping to pull the upset if you can. But I think the key here for Lakes is to get out of this thing healthy and don't let Ranch beat up on you too much. So I like Ranch. I just think they're too big, too physical in the trenches. And they've got that guy at quarterback in Baker. And he's really done a great job spreading the ball around to his playmakers. So I think Tyrone Carter's done a great job at Lakes. I think that what's it's still in front of him, and but it's going to be a matter of really kind of how tiebreak. We always say it's 16-6A, right? Get your tiebreakers out because
exactly. We didn't have that last year though. We didn't have it last year, but we had it
one of the rare years. I think we're going to have it this year. I think between Lakes, Springs, Waller, and Langham Creek, we could have a real mess in our hands.
16-6A is usually when you have two pencils over each ear. You got a calculator over here. You're over here acting like an accountant, like
I'm calling coaches. Okay, what's okay? When you have a three-way tie, do you take the top team out and then you go back to head-to-head, or once you go points, do you stay points? Oh, you take the bottom team out. Okay, that's interesting. It's all kinds of UIL. Please, just give me just give me universal tiebreaker, please, just for me. For your buddy in Canada, Matt Stepp, universal tiebreaker. Please help me out.
Will you? All right, 17-6A. It's another one of these deals. Don't make it hurt you twice. Side Fair's lost no more. They got to come back and jump on Stratford here, right?
Yeah, Stratford I think is a playoff team, but Coach Rankin's squad, I think they've taken a step back this year. there's a couple of years where Stratford was really a contender for the district title. They may have even won a district title at some point.
When they had his son Nash playing quarterback.
Yeah, Nash ranking back there. So I think if you're a Stratford fan, you beat Cy Ridge week 10, you're in the playoffs, right? For sure. I think these next couple of weeks, are really just about, kind of getting ready for that possible Memorial game. I think if you want to, the problem for Stratford is going to be those you can't afford to drop another one, or that Memorial game is going to be rendered a little bit more meaningless.
Right.
Yeah, I think Cy-Fair is just a little bit more explosive here. Jeff Miller and Cy-Fair, that Bobcat fight never dies mentality kind of permeates through that program. I just don't Cy-Fair has been winning for such a long time. I just don't feel like they're the kind of program where one loss beats them twice. I think they'll take what they learned in the Memorial game and apply it this week. I like Cy-Fair over Stratford. A little bit of consistency with that program. And Stratford just a little bit down this year. So give me the Bobcats.
Give it to them. All right, we haven't been in 18-6A almost at all this year, but we're in there now. Maybe we won't be back again until week 11. Heights Lamar, this is probably your district title matchup here. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, is this one at Del Mar? I'm sure it probably is.
Del Mar, yeah.
Usually HISD always manages to put their marquee games over at Del Mar. So this is probably, I'm assuming this is going to be
it's a Del Mar
Friday night Del Mar game. Coach Dixon has done such a great job at Heights, and they're the one team that has challenged Lamar consistently over the years, and they beat them once. So I think Lamar is the best team in HISD still. I thought Heights would take a step back. They were pretty young coming into the season, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and they've really grown up quite a bit here. And they, back-to-back shutouts to open district play. Granted, Wisdom and Chavez aren't right. the cream of the crop, but the other thing about Heights that's intrigued me is they're 7 points away from being 6-0. I mean, their 3 losses are to Elkins by 3, Clear Springs by 3, and Aileen Taylor by a point. I mean, they're a touchdown away total from being 6-0 going into this game. Yeah. But Lamar played a different caliber of non-district opponent versus Heights, and that Michael Lindsay's ball club, they're battle tested. They're super athletic, and I just you can't. It's hard to pick against Lamar. They don't have that long streak anymore in district play, but they've only lost once in the past 10 years in district. So Lamar plays an HISD team. We're going to book the Texans.
Yeah. Now, if we're talking about HISD in a whole, Lamar, yes, it's the best team in HISD. My boys over there at Yates, they get a couple more students over there, and they bump up their attendance. They might make a run there because they're playing some heck of 5 ball.
They are.
We'll talk about that probably a little later. But let's go into the Katy district. Jordan, they're 5-2, right? They're winning games, but man, it just does not seem like the Jordan team that I saw last year, the year before. And Katy, I'm gonna keep this string going. Gary Joseph's still not voting for him in the top 20, but they're winning games now, and now they're starting to play some of the teams that are the big dogs in the district, including this one. It could be they'll play Cinco Ranch, or have they already beaten Cinco Ranch? I believe they beat Cinco Ranch.
Who's that? Katy?
Katy, yeah. They already beat Cinco Ranch.
Katy's already taken Cinco, yeah.
So they'll go ahead and take the district title if they win this one. Thursday night game at Legacy.
Yeah, Jordan, I've got some concerns. I mean, they only scored 21 against Seven Lakes last week, 21-6. So, is Tanner West healthy? Is he playing? I mean, the thing that's different about Jordan this year versus the last couple of years is Jordan had a lot of weapons. They had multiple guys.
Marsh.
Andrew Marsh being the highest profile of those guys. But they've had other guys. They had 2 running backs. They usually had two or three receivers that can make plays. This year, it's pretty much Tanner West. And if Tanner West is banged up or not playing, then the Jordan offense just kind of seems to be stuck in mud. And then they're putting a lot of pressure on that defense, which is very good. Jordan has a very good defense, but the offense, if West isn't playing, there's not a lot of help there for him. So, teams that have one playmaker like that typically don't fare well against Katy. Katy's gotten the wheels back on after their really tough start, but looking back on it, it's like, okay, the Dickinson loss, you don't really hold that against them too much as we see how good Dickinson is.
Right.
The Atascocita loss, maybe you chalk it up to they just Carde Max got their number. So it's like, should Katy start to pop back up on the radar again, especially if they go Division II come playoff time? So Tremaine Hill is obviously the running back, and the offensive line's gotten going. Katy's gotten some guys back on the defensive side of the ball. They're getting healthy on that side. So you wonder if Katy rounding into form right at the right time here. I like Katy I think they're going to cruise to the district championship at 8-0, and I think you go into the playoffs, at 8-2, feeling pretty good about yourselves, especially like I said, if you go into that D2 bracket. If Katy goes Division II, there's a path to go to there's a path to go to AT&T Stadium here. Like that path is there.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Now. They're scoring now too, 50+ in every game that they've won, and they're kind of like North Shore. When North Shore took that first loss, they're just playing in the shadows now, which is hard for those two teams to do. But they're just jacking around the shadows. Obviously, North Shore, by putting up 70 the last 2 weeks, they're stepping out of the shadows.
They're starting to emerge now, but I guarantee Gary Joseph and Willie Gaston are totally content with laying in the shadows for another couple of weeks.
Exactly. All right, you tell me that Cinco Ranch is going to win. I tell you that I feel, for some reason, I have this feeling that Tompkins is going to win. Tell me why Cinco Ranch is going to win this one and keep Katy as a D2 team.
Davis Roop. I think if that guy at quarterback for Cinco, when they have him, they're capable of doing. I mean, you look at what Cinco did against Katy. They lost to Katy 56-28, but for about 2.5 quarters, that was a back and forth, 35-28 kind of game. Katy pulls away late. I think the offense with Davis Roop is just extremely potent. And I do feel like, other than the Katy game, the defense has come along, but really, it's offense. They handled Pato by 2 touchdowns last week. They're fresh off that 3. I mean, the last 2 weeks, Cinco's beaten Jordan and Pato. Right. Pretty good stuff for Chris Dudley's ball club. Now you got Tompkins and Maid Creek. Like I said, these next 2 weeks, they win these two. They're looking at the 2 seed. And then here's the thing: if they do get that 2 seed in district and Katy goes Division II, Cinco pops into that 1 seed in the Division I bracket. So I do think this. Look, I think this is a pick'em game. Tompkins is explosive. Blake Hamilton, at Tompkins' team. They've shown they're capable on the right day of playing with the best in the state. The consistency just hasn't been there with Tompkins, and that's why I lean to Cinco Ranch. I think they just look a little more consistent to me. Okay,
because they've had some impressive wins. They did beat Cy Ranch. They've taken care of Maid Creek, but when in that 3-game string, they did come up with some big losses there. So I see what you're saying. All right, move to 26A. This one's a district title game here. Fulshire, who wound up in the coaches poll here at number 20, is taking on Straight Jesuit. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, this district I don't have a great read on. I don't look. There's not any great teams in this district.
There isn't.
I think these are the 2 best teams in the district, and I don't know how far either of them go in the playoffs. The best player is on Strake and John Abear. So, and he's had a good year. He hasn't put up – I kind of said it preseason. I didn't think he would put up the monster numbers he had last year. I felt like Jesuits, some losses on the offensive line, people scheming to slow him down. It would slow him down a little bit, and it has. Fulshire, complete change in offensive systems and schemes from Nick Caduti to Stephen Hill, and it's taken them some time to kind of figure things out. And they played a tough schedule. I mean, they you're playing Pearland and Ridge Point and non-district. You're going to struggle, right? So I preseason I thought Strake would win this game, but I feel like Fulshire's got the wheels on here. And they've won 5 in a row. Granted, Fort Bend, Austin, Alief Taylor, Alief Hastings, Richmond Foster, Burleson Centennial. None of those teams are very good right now. Burleson Centennial's in the Metroplex. They're a 5-18 that's probably going to miss the playoffs this year. I'm going to go with Fulshire here. They were the district champs last year. They do have enough playmakers back, and I think they're getting it together under Stephen Hill. So I'm going to lean to Fulshire to get that win. And again, this is probably not going to have much of a playoff impact because, especially with Alief Elsick, their big win over Foster a couple weeks ago kind of puts them in the playoff. I think Fulshere's going to be your D1-1, and I think Strake's going to be your D2-1. So this is really bragging rights, but those bragging rights involve a district title. So give me the Chargers.
Well, I hate to do this to you, considering you just finished telling me you don't know a lot about this district. But here's another one for you.
Well,
Elsick has to make the postseason. So, I mean, we think they're going to make the postseason, but somebody else has to. And George Ranch doesn't feel like they want it. I mean, the way they've been playing, they've been winless. They lost to Strake. They couldn't even score. Foster beat them, and Foster's only won the one game. I mean, I don't think Hastings is going to make it. Taylor,
and Elsick beat Foster already. So, Elsick's 2-5.
Elsick could be the third team, but we got to get a fourth one in there. Can George Ranch show us anything, or are we going to give it to Taylor?
Well, I think it's going to be Foster. It's going to get the.
I think it's going to be Foster. Okay.
Foster already beat George Ranch, so I think George Ranch has to win this game if they want to have any chance of getting to the playoffs. The problem is Alief Elsick's got a really good quarterback. Caden Mendenhall has been put up monster numbers for Shea Rodriguez's ball club. I think Elsick, and you look at their record, you're like they're 2-5, but I mean their losses. Richmond, Randall, Iowa Colony, Houston, Lamar, and Conroe.
Those are good teams, man. Those are squad. They're teams that are all still in the playoff hunt.
Yes, but obviously Randall and Iowa Colony in 5A are top three teams in the state. So I think Elsick. The difference is Caden Mendenhall. The quarterback play here is elite for Elsick. Give me the Rams.
Okay. Well, I'm skipping over 22-6A because the haves are playing the have-nots. We'll go into 23-6A. And this one, I feel like Atascocita has it, but if anybody's going to keep Atascocita out of the playoffs, it's this one. It's Kingwood beating them. Can Kingwood beat them, or can Atascocita finally play a little bit of defense to stop them from scoring?
Well, I mean, hey, they held Humble to 3 last week, so now it's Humble. Humble's struggling this year, but they're going into the Kingwood game feeling a lot better about themselves after that. Whereas Kingwood coming into this game, probably not feeling real great about themselves after they took North Shore, put the whooping stick to them 71-7. So obviously Carde Mack and his health, CJ Toney, I mean those two guys, by themselves, can carry an offense. With then you got Rocket Rashid, they can put in at quarterback or put in at right. The versatility of Atascocita offense is still there. Now, I don't think Atascocita's offensive line is quite as good as it has been in the past. They kind of had a run there where they were producing some of the best offensive lines in Texas. They're not quite at that level.
I saw one of them the other day. Dewberry's at I think he's at Alabama now, or one of the big SEC schools. I see him out there.
They're just not that good up front as they have been. Defensively, obviously, they've struggled. They got to continue to try to find a way to get better. I don't think it's a talent thing for Atascocita. They got playmakers. They just got to figure it out. Kingwood, this year, they're still good, but they don't seem to have that magic like they had last year. And I just don't know what it is. I'm not close enough to that program to know if there's something. But that loss to North Shore just not even last year they gave North Shore a pretty good game for a little while. They were just non-competitive last week. So if there is anyone that's going to do the unthinkable and keep Atascocita out, it's Kingwood here. But I just don't think they have enough. So I'll take Carde Mack, the Fighting Carde Macks, to get the win and at least secure that playoff spot, which means probably, a first-round trip to Dickinson, which will be very tough.
Right, exactly. That brings me to the next district, 24-6A. Man, we probably were settled on the playoff teams in this district probably about 2-3 weeks ago, but the halves are playing each other now. We're starting that deal where the halves play each other, and now they're trying to figure out I'm sure they're peeking over at 23-6A, and they're like, I don't want to play that team. This team, I definitely don't want to play that team. Hell, I don't want to play any of them teams. But you're going to have to play one of them. Clear Falls taking on Clear Springs. One of these two teams, are we looking at these two are Division II teams? I mean, they're going to get a Summer Creek or a C King, and it's not going to be pretty. But if you get a home game against them, that's your only saving grace. So one team's got to beat the other. So what's going to happen in this one? And I like Kyden Parker. I love the way Kyden Parker's playing for his new team there.
Yeah, and I think Falls has the edge of the quarterback spot here for the Booker kid, but I think Springs is better in a lot of other spots. I feel like Springs has had Falls' number. course, I remember 2020 Falls made it all the way to a regional final. They kind of made during the COVID year, they got all the way to the regional final before Katy.
They had a hell of a defense then, though.
They did. I just think Springs has got a little bit too much athleticism at the skill positions and just a little. I think on paper, I think our computer has this as a pick'em game. I don't think it's quite a pick'em game, but I like Springs by a score here. 34-28 type football game.
I got you. I'm kind of with you on that. All right, let's talk about Barbers Hill. We talk about them every week. Now they're starting to lose some games now. They're starting to lose some traction here. They got Beaumont United, who's got a nice, decent record, but they haven't really played anybody. Sure. They got to get a win here. Barbers Hill has to pull this one off. Otherwise, we really are going to start worried about them.
Yeah. This is a must-win for Barbers Hill. And you just wonder, how much did they throw? Did they just blow their wad, for lack of a better term, against Lufkin in that game? Because the last 2 weeks, they have not looked good.
No.
Port Arthur Memorial, I'm willing to give them a pass on losing that game because I think Port Arthur Memorial is that good this year. They're extremely talented.
They should be able to score, though.
Yes, and not losing by 28, 34-6 at home. That's the other thing. If this game was in Port Arthur, I'd be like, okay, tough road trip. Port Arthur's a tough place to play. Maybe. Port Arthur went into Barbers Hill's house and did this to them. So there's some concerns there with Barbers Hill. This has got to be a get right game for them. If they don't get right this week, I start to worry about Barbers Hill even making the play. This is a must win. They can't lose this game. But I'll still be concerned if they win this game. It's very close because they still got to play Beaumont Westbrook, who's a strong team as well. So then you start looking at if they lose 3 games.
They got to beat.
Now you start worried about getting into a tie with Baytown Sterling, which you don't want to be in a tie with Baytown Sterling because they have the head-to-head on you. Right. So I think Barbers Hill gets right this week. I'm watching. I'll be shocked if they lose this game. All due respect to Beaumont United, I will be shocked if Barbers Hill loses. Right. But if this game is close, I'm starting to worry because now you still got to play Westbrook, and then that would if Westbrook somehow beats you, now you got 3 losses, and now you're really in danger of getting into some kind of 2-way tie with Baytown Sterling. Because
as soon as Barbers Hill steps off the field with Beaumont United, they become the biggest Beaumont United fan there is because they need Beaumont United to beat Baytown Sterling, who's now they're in their they got a great win against Barbers Hill, but now they're in their gauntlet. They lost to Westbrook. They got Lufkin coming. They got a bye. Then they got Port Arthur coming. Then they have Beaumont United seems to be the tricky team there that could throw a wrench in the works for both of these two teams because if they both beat Beaumont United and lose to all the other ones, Sterling has the advantage right there, right?
Yes, they do. And Sterling, I think, they fell back to earth a little bit last week after the big win over Barbers Hill. They took it on the chin to Westbrook 37-7. They tough road trip for Lufkin coming all the way down from East Texas down to Baytown. The thing about this is Lufkin's had a week off. They've been getting ready for Sterling for 2 weeks. So they're going to be locked into slowing down that Sterling rushing attack. And I just feel like Lufkin, with the week off, is going to be ready to go in this one down at Stalworth Stadium. I think Carl Absex Ball Club comes into Baytown, gets a big win, because if Baytown Sterling beats Lufkin, now we start talking about Lufkin being in danger of missing the playoffs. Right. They were the district champs last year. Right. Because now Lufkin's got head-to-head losses to Sterling and Barbers Hill, and still having to play Port Arthur coming up. The only saving grace is they do have a win, an overtime win, but they have a win over Westbrook. So this is a must-win for Lufkin. They cannot afford
crazy. You end up with a loss here, and then all of a sudden you're back on the phone with 2 pencils in your ear trying to figure out what's going on. I think this game, it's not quite an elimination game,
right? But this is a buffer win game. You get this win here, you're feeling – because now the winner of this game would have two wins over potential teams that could be tied with it. I think at this point we're assuming Port Arthur Memorial's running the table.
Yes.
I think they've proven they're probably the best team in the district. They're probably going to go clear 6-0 undefeated. Let's just make that assumption real quick. Now you got Baytown Sterling, Beaumont Westbrook, Lufkin, Barbers Hill, pretty much those 4, maybe United, but we'll say for the sake of argument, you got 4 teams. You got 4 teams fighting for 3. Well, the winner of this game is going to have wins over 2 of those 3.
Yeah.
So that makes you feel good about getting into the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
well, the loser's like, we're going to have to beat Port Arthur Memorial just to give ourselves a chance. So, huge game, a lot of playoff implications here. Edge to Lufkin with the bye week, coming in off the bye week.
I feel like those 2 Beaumont teams are going to they're going to hold the key to see which one of these 2 Houston area teams are going to make it into the postseason.
Yeah,
Westbrook or.
I think Westbrook's a superior team. I think United, they got the win over Galveston Ball, but I think that's going to be. I don't think United's going to beat anyone else in this. No. I think they're going to another couple of losses, they'll be out of the picture. And then we're really going to laser focus on.
If we make that assumption though, then we have to really circle that Westbrook Barbers Hill game. We got to circle it 3 times because Barbers Hill is going to need to win that game in order to make the playoffs.
Yes, exactly. That's 100% accurate. Yes, if that's the case, then Westbrook's Barbers Hill becomes Barbers Hill's de facto playoff game.
Right, and then Sterling doesn't have to worry as much as if they lose, even if they lose out and beat West United, then they're still in good shape.
I think if you're Sterling, you gotta get to 3. So you got if you assume they've already got beaten Barbers Hill and they've beaten Galveston Ball already. You assume they beat United. That's going to be 3-3. So that's where
they're going to feel good.
They're 3-3, and then now they want Barbers Hill to lose 3, so they can be at a tie with Barbers Hill to get that playoff spot. So a lot of moving parts. And 9-5A Division I is a lot more interesting this year than it was last. Last year was pretty much stratified. It was Lufkin, Barbers Hill, Port Arthur. It was pretty much down the line.
Yep, right there.
Not the case this year.
All right, let's go to 10-5A. This is it for second or no? We're pretty settled on Madison being first, but this is a big one here down at they're playing at Butler. Waltrip and Westbury both 4-1 in district. Sterling's kind of bowing out a little bit because they lost to Westbury and they lost to Madison, so now they're not really in a race for a title here, but the other 2 are because they still both have Madison on the schedule. Well, actually. Westbury doesn't. They've already lost to Madison.
Yeah. This is where it gets tough for Waltrip. They're entering their tough stretch of the schedule here because they got Westbury, and then they close with Madison and Sterling in weeks 10 and week 11. So the tough stretch of their schedule begins this week. I do think Waltrip gets the win here. I think it will be close. This is a pick'em game. I like Chris O'Neill a lot as their head coach. Westbury, since dropping down from 6A, they've been good, but not great.
Right.
Waltrip consistently has been winning these kind of in the margins HISD games for a while now, very quietly. Waltrip doesn't just blow you away talent wise. They've usually got a solid cast of about 15 players, which in HISD and 5A gives you some good depth. Give me Waltrip in this one in a close one, setting up. I think we're going to end up having a Waltrip Madison game on Halloween night. Both teams undefeated in district play for the district championship.
A lot of good Halloween games.
Yeah, Halloween night across the state. Yeah, it's going to be get your spooky puns out, and Pickle's already. Pickle's a big Halloween girl. So, she's got them all ready to go. So don't worry about that. So Halloween night's going to be a lot of fun across the state. A ton of huge games week 10.
You know what else is Halloween night? LaPorte and Angleton. We're not even talking about when we're talking 11-5A Division I playoff talking. It's not those 2. We already talked about them. And to be honest with you, it's not really Crosby either. Crosby really put the stomp down on Kingwood Park last week, and they're really showing that they beat Kingwood Park. They beat Friendswood. Those are the other 2 teams that we feel, or at least I feel, are going to give them a run for that 4th spot. So does it come down to Kingwood Park and Friendwood, or who else do you feel has a chance to get that 4th spot?
Yeah, I think Kingwood Park and Friendswood will be the game that decides that last playoff spot. I feel pretty confident at this point that Joe Willis' squad there at Crosby is going to get that 3 seed at this point. And I think Kingwood Park, obviously the losses to LaPorte and the Crosby loss was definitely concerning. In Kingwood Park, they got Angleton this week on Thursday night. Probably going to be 3 in a row, and then they have a chance to kind of get right against Pasadena in week 9. And then they got Friendswood at home Thursday night, October 30th. I think that's going to be your basically your de facto playoff game. So yeah, I think if you
But
want to
you
look
don't
ahead,
feel good about Porter, right? We don't feel good about Porter making any kind of run here because they have those two teams left as well.
They're still in play here, but
They haven't beat
I don't.
anybody with significance, really.
No, and even the Kempner game, they it was 27-6. They kind of struggled against Kempner. So Laporte, Porter plays Friendswood in week 8. They play him next week or week 9. Excuse me. They play next week. So we'll kind of know. Porter plays Friendswood, and then Friendswood plays Kingwood Park. So those weeks 9 and week 10 are going to tell us who gets that 4th playoff spot because Friendswood beats them both. They're in, and then depending on how things shake out. So we'll start to that picture is going to start becoming a lot clearer next week.
I'm feeling really good about it. It's a funny thing to say about Crosby that loss to Marshall seems like a bad loss now. It seems like a terrible loss. They probably shouldn't have lost to it. They only lost by 3 points, and usually we don't say that about that team, but it does seem like a bad loss. But they're playing good ball. Maybe they can – do you give them a chance of even trying to get an upset against one of Laporte or Angleton or no?
No. I think Angleton and Laporte are on a different level than the rest of the district.
All right, let's talk some 8-5A Division II playoff talk because we got Huntsville now losing to Montgomery last week, and I feel like Montgomery and PNG are now, well, I think we both feel if they're on the road to the district title game whenever they face each other. Let's see if that's that's Halloween as well. How about that? Another Halloween. What are we going to do, man? I only have that many shooters.
Our show that week is going to be crazy. It's going to be a wild Halloween night. You should make your shooters dressed up in Halloween costumes.
I should do that. Knowing them, there'll be all what's that new kids thing out there? Demon hunters. There'll all be demon hunters out there.
Yeah. The Halloween night's going to be wild in the Houston area. So
well, I put this up here because I'm worried about Huntsville. Are you worried about them making the postseason, or is it because they just lost to the 2 big dogs? Because Lake Creek also got a big win over Dayton. To show that they want to get in the postseason too.
Well, Huntsville's got Dayton this week, so Huntsville beats Dayton, then I think we kind of know who the 4 playoff teams are at this point. Dayton beats Huntsville, it gets real weird, and so I think if you're Huntsville, Huntsville's been among the most disappointing teams in the state so far.
Yeah,
they played good against P&G and lost, but there are other 2 really good games that were kind of measuring stick games. They gotten kind of handled by Brenham and by Montgomery last week. So, I think Huntsville's been a disappointment. I like them over Dayton, but then the Lake Creek game in week 9, I think is going to be really the avoid Texas High Bowl. Don't have to go all the way to listen. Huntsville at this point is going to have to travel either way because it's either go to Marshall or go to Texas High. Most likely in the first round of playoffs. Well, Marshall's about an hour and a half closer, so I'd probably rather go to Marshall. And Marshall's got their own set of issues out there in East Texas. They're going to finish second, but they haven't scored an offensive touchdown in 2 games. So they got their own set of concerns, and they won one of those games 7-3 with a defensive touchdown. But then they got shut out by Texas High last week 14-0. So I would much rather go play Marshall because I think as a team that's offensively challenged, you got a shot. So, I think Huntsville's concerned. I right now I'd still give Huntsville the edge on the 3 seed and Montgomery Lake Creek as the 4 because of Montgomery Lake Creek's big win over Dayton last week. But if Dayton beats Huntsville this week, now we may start talking about Huntsville missing the playoffs altogether.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd say that. All right, we'll go to 9-5A Division II. Santa Fe wins this one. And they're in the postseason. They're a playoff team, and Texas City still has to deal with the Marshall squad that Santa Fe's already beaten. Mm-hmm. But who would you give the favorite to in this one?
I like Texas. Texas City gave Randall a really good run last week. It was a close game for a while. Randall pulled away late, 25-7. So at Texas City defense, you hold Randall to 25 points means you held Landon Williams-Callis, at least slowed him down a little bit. So. Santa Fe, great year under Blake Ryder. I still think they're going to get into the playoffs. Now they may have a really tough first round game against Brenham, but for Santa Fe, just to get into the playoffs would be huge. And I do think they will get in because the schedule really lightens up for the Indians after this week. So I think this is the winner of this game. You can pretty much pencil into the playoffs. The loser still has a little bit of work to do, but I think both these teams are playoff. I think really this is your battle for third place here. This is the avoid Brenham Bowl.
Yeah. Well, if Texas City's playing the kind of defense they are, they probably won't have as much problem with Marshall since they're not playing much offense. So maybe this is just a 3-4 game right here, as you said. So let's move down to 4A real quick. I want to talk a little Huffman Hargrave. That's why I put them on there. Your thoughts on them as a possible postseason team here? They're 2-1 right now. They took a big loss to Lumberton, but you feel like they're postseason squad?
I do think they're going to get into the playoffs. They've been a little disappointing. I've got them as the 4 seed right now. Right. Yeah, it's tough games against Little Cypress, Mauriceville, and Bridge City coming up. This is a must-win for Huffman here. Hardin Jefferson is much improved. Zach Bass has done a great job kind of rebuild. Hardin Jefferson actually opted up to Division I. They actually have a Division II enrollment, and they elected to opt up. I think this is a de facto playoff game here. I think the winner of this game feels pretty good about getting into the postseason. I think the loser is in big trouble. And that's crazy to say about Huffman, but Huffman with games still against Bridge City and Little Cypress, a loss here would give them 2 losses and then still 2 tough games left on the schedule. So I do think Huffman wins, but I think it's going to be really close. I think Hardin Jefferson is going to throw the kitchen sink at him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move to it. Let's talk some 11-4A playoff talk. Yates' heads and tails are better than everybody in the district. They've proven it on the field. They are probably 3-4 touchdowns better than everybody in the district. But we have other playoff spots that they have to get in there. Washington was looking good for a while, but Worthing shut them out. So now Worthing is looking good. North Forest still looks good despite the fact they got beat. But everybody got beat badly by them.
I think Yates is just that much better than everyone else in the district this year. First off, I think Yates is going to be this year's Worthing. I think they're going to win a playoff game.
Okay, excellent.
You look at North Forest. They already have a win over Worthing in the bag,
right?
So I still feel like they're the number 2 seed. I think that Worthing and Booker T game was really for the last playoff with the 3rd place.
I was going to say, do you think Fur has a chance to get in there?
I think Fur has a chance because they still if they can beat Washington, they've got a shot.
They lost to Washington. No, they haven't played Worthing yet.
Yeah, I think Wheatley. Wheatley still has to play Washington, but Wheatley lost to Fur. So, no, Wheatley lost to Washington too. So,
maybe Washington's looking a lot better than I thought they were. They're looking good as that last team.
Washington at least has the head-to-head over Wheatley and Fur, who I really think are the only other 2 teams that can challenge us. I think what we've got here is I think we're almost set.
We're good, right?
Unless Worthing could upset Yates late in the year, I feel like we're going Yates, North Forest, Worthing, Booker T.
Washington,
1 through 4,
Yeah.
Those head-to-head wins for Booker T over. I thought Fur still had to play Wheatley, but now that I'm looking at it, Fur's got head-to-head over. Washington has head-to-head over Wheatley and Fur.
Yeah, they got 2 big wins. I didn't see that.
And
either.
The bottom of the districts, there's a big gap there. So I think we're pretty much the 4 teams are pretty much set. I think we're close to having the order set, but not quite there yet.
All right, let's move down to it. Always creeps me out when I say this 15-4A and still talking Houston teams. Let's go down to 15-4A. Bay City's got one of their nemesis here, Lavernia. They used to be your nemesis a couple of years ago, and the fans were giving you the business online about not talking about them that much. But what do you feel about this game, Lavernia and Bay City? Because Bay City still got El Campo coming up the following week.
Yeah, this is interesting 2 weeks for Bay City because you've got the team that beat you in the playoffs last year, and then you got your big rival against El Campo coming up. So, Lavernia has quietly been very good. They lost to Cuero early in the year and kind of fell out of the state rankings and kind of, fell off the radar a little bit. They've been pretty good. And then Bay City, has been interesting because they lost so much on offense to graduation, but their defense has really been good. Other than the Sealy game, they haven't allowed more than 20 points in a game all year. Now the schedule is like I said, the next 2 weeks is toughening up because they really haven't played.
Right.
All due respect to Brazosport and Floresville, those teams aren't at that level. So I think this is going to be a game of styles. Bay City, Lavernia is going to want to grind it down, slow the game down. Bay City wants to pick the tempo up. Bay City's got to win those early downs. They can't let Lavernia get into those 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2s, where they're lethal and they just keep you off the field. They just don't let you have the football. So early downs are going to be key for Bay City here. Can they keep Lavernia in unfavorable. It basically put them in passing situations, put them in 3rd and 5 or long. They've got to throw the football. That's going to be the key. I feel like running game and defense travels. I lean to Lavernia here, but it's going to be a really, really, really close football game.
Well, when you go down to 10-4A Division II, it's even before the schedule comes out, it's 5 teams fighting for 4 spots because there's 2 teams that you can't even see getting wins with the Katy Harmony and the other Harmony squad. So we got Brookshire Royal against Lamarck, and we also have Sweeney against West Columbia. We got to figure out which of those 4 teams, if you add Warrenton to it as well, which of those 5 are going to be the 4 playoff squads, and how are these games going to play into effect?
I think Wharton's the odd team out here. I think right now, I think Brookshire Royal and Lamarck basically is for the 2 spot. I think West Columbia is the team to beat. They've kind of separated themselves a little bit from the pack. Now they still have to play. I believe they still have to play Lamarck. I don't think
they do, but they've played to their competition though. Wharton they only won by a touchdown, and Brookshire Royal they went overtime with. Yeah. So they got Sweeney, they got Lamarck left. Yes, but they don't just walk away from teams unless their last name is Harmony.
Yeah, and also Columbia's kind of changed their offense just a bit. Dennis Silva did a great story on this in the local newspaper I read, where Columbia's kind of running that wing tee. I mean, they famously ran the wing tee when they had Cameron Ward at quarterback. So they've kind of opened the offense up a little bit, trying to get, guys like Dasi Abdallah and Logan Lewis the ball in space and kind of play to their strengths. And I think they're still trying to figure that out, but it's working for them. I like West Columbia. I like Lamarck. I think West Columbia Lamarck is going to be for the district championship. I do think Brookshire Royal, after the slow start, is going to get locked into that 3 seed, and then I think Sweeney outlasts Wharton for the 4 seed.
I can dig it. All right, last one. We'll go down to 3A. This one's for the top of the district here. I say that as Columbus is now playing their first district game here in Week 8. They're taking on Yoakum.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think about this one before they take on Hitchcock, I believe, next week.
Yoakum's a dangerous team. Xavier Barnett, the SMU commit, is really, really explosive. That Columbus win over Belleville to close out non-district looks a lot better right now, considering Belleville beat Sealy. So Columbus has got to go on the road. This is tricky. Because I don't think Columbus is quite as dominant, obviously, as they were a year ago. They're just a different type of football team this year.
Right.
I'll lean to Columbus, give the state champs the edge, but I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think. In my opinion, I think Yoakum is going to edge out Hitchcock for the 2 seed. I really like this Yoakum Bulldog Ball Club. If they beat Columbus, all bets are off. They can maybe win the district, but I think they give Columbus a run at home. I like Columbus, but in a very close, competitive, high-scoring football game.
All right, well, let's finish this thing off. Find out once you get back to the States, where is Matt going to be stepping out?
Yeah, I'm keeping it local this week for the most part. Thursday night, at least local to me in the Metroplex. Thursday night, I'll be at the Star in Frisco. Big game, Frisco and Wakeland going at it. 2 teams. Frisco's got 1 loss in district play to Lone Star, who's number 2 in the state in 5A D1. Wakeland's undefeated, so I think the winner of this game has at least the inside track to the 2 seed. So big game Thursday night indoors at the Ford Center in Frisco. Then Friday, I'm headed out to East Texas, an old rivalry game. Northeast Texas as Paris takes on Sulphur Springs. Really big game in that really tough 7-4A Division I district. Sulphur Springs was state ranked, and their star quarterback got hurt on the very first play of the game against Salina. I'd be very interested to see if they had him, how that Salina game would turn out. He didn't play. Their offense struggled. They lost 38-14. So we'll see with the week to get their backup quarterback ready, how they adjust against their arch rival, who Paris is very good. Paris is 5-2. They got a big win last week over Aubrey, 49-17. So I feel like Paris has got the inside track to that 4th playoff spot, at least in 7-4A Division I. And then Saturday, I'll be at the Oak Cliff Super Bowl.
Hey, I'll see you there,
Dallas at Kincaid Stadium. Yeah, probably for the district championship at 8-4A Division I as Dallas Carter takes on Dallas Kimball. Should be a fun one. Always a big rivalry. I'm hearing Dallas Kimball has the best tailgate, so I'm going to go check out my guys at Dallas Kimball and get the tailgate pregame, and then head into the stadium and hopefully watch a good rivalry game with district title implications there in 4A D1. So it's a big 4A week for me, Friday and Saturday.
The cool thing about DISD, and I don't see that a lot with, and granted, I haven't been to a lot of Houston games. DISD, when there's a big game going on, like when SOC played North Shore, all the coaches from the other DISD games, basketball, football, whatever, they all come out to the games. Their team's not even playing, so I expect to see Snoop. Snoop will be there for sure.
Snoop's the one running the tailgate.
Oh, well, then Snoop definitely be.
So Snoop, I know I'm sure you're watching the Houston Huddle. Exactly. Snoop, hit me up. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Be some good games. Also, another thing, I don't know why we keep talking about DFW, but thanks to Garland ISD and their fall break, the Wizard, that's me, gets one of my rare three bangers in one day on Thursday because they have a 5:30 start over there at Wiley East. So I'll get a 5:30 game and 2 7 o'clock games in Frisco. Usually doesn't happen for me until the playoffs start, but
am I going to see you Thursday in Frisco?
You may see me in Frisco as well.
All right, let's go.
Still working out the details, but you may see me there.
All right. Well,
all right, buddy.
I will say I will be in Houston week 9 and week 10.
He's coming.
Yeah,
he's coming. Is that Halloween? No, that's week 10 is Halloween.
November 1st. Well, yeah,
we got to figure out your Halloween schedule, man. With all those great games, I better not see you at bust down you against Freddie Tech or some nonsense.
Well, right now I'm leaning towards Longview and North Forney, but they both lost last week, so I don't know where I'm going to be now.
Yeah, but that district's crazy. There's going to be some losses there. All right, buddy boy, we will see you on the road. Good luck getting back to the States. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm out of here.
Thank you.